The massive crystal towers of the Galactic Council headquarters stretched into the void of space, their surfaces pulsing with urgent red warning lights. Inside the main assembly hall, hundreds of alien delegates from across the galaxy gathered. In an emergency session that would determine the fate of countless worlds, Admiral Felix stood at the center of the circular chamber, his tall, crystalline body shimmering with nervous energy. As a member of the Zephyrian race, his transparent form naturally reflected his emotions through changing light patterns, and right now, those patterns showed pure fear. His voice echoed through the chamber with the musical tones his people were known for. "Fellow council members, we face our darkest hour," he began, his words carrying the weight of impending doom. "The Vorthach Empire has launched a full-scale invasion across 3 of our border sectors. In just 72 hours, 17 of our colony worlds have been completely destroyed." A wave of shocked murmurs rippled through the assembly. The insectoid Cathari delegates clicked their mandibles in distress, while the metallic representatives of the Axiom Federation's circuits flickered with rapid data processing. Other species throughout the chamber displayed their own signs of panic and fear. General Extar of the Cathari swarm rose from his position, his 6 arms gesturing wildly as he spoke. His compound eyes reflected the chamber's lights as he addressed the crowd. "The situation is worse than Admiral Thylex describes. Our scouts report that the Vorthach are not simply conquering these worlds, they are harvesting the populations." The chamber fell silent, except for the soft humming of translation devices working to convert the various alien languages. Everyone knew what harvesting meant when it came to the Vorthach Empire. The enemy did not take prisoners or establish colonies. Instead, they captured living beings and converted them into biomechanical soldiers through horrific surgical procedures that merged flesh with machine. "Their war machines are unlike anything we have faced before," continued Vextar, his voice becoming more urgent. "They adapt to our weapons, learn from our tactics, and grow stronger with each battle. Our combined military forces cannot match their numbers or their technology." Admiral Thylex nodded grimly and activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the conflict. Red markers indicated Vorthach-controlled systems, while blue markers showed the rapidly shrinking territory still under Galactic Council protection. The red was spreading like a disease across the star map. "We have called this emergency session to request immediate military support from all member worlds," Thylex announced. "Every ship, every soldier, every weapon we can gather will be needed to stop this invasion before it reaches our core systems." One by one, the various species began reporting their contributions. The Cathari would provide their massive swarm fleets. The Axiom Federation promised their most advanced battle cruisers. The gas-dwelling Nephilim offered their atmospheric fighters, while the rock-based Golem, Defederacy pledged their nearly indestructible fortress ships. In the back corner of the assembly hall, almost forgotten among the more prominent alien species, sat a single human figure. Ambassador Kim Daeho was a middle-aged man with graying hair and a calm expression that seemed out of place among the panic surrounding him. Earth had only joined the Galactic Council 23 years ago, making humanity one of the newest and least experienced members of the interstellar community. Most of the other delegates barely noticed when the Council's secretary called for Earth's contribution to the war effort. In their minds, humanity was still a primitive species that had only recently discovered faster-than-light travel. What could they possibly offer in a conflict of this magnitude? Kim Daeho stood slowly and waited for the translation devices to focus on him before speaking. His voice was quiet but steady, cutting through the chaos of the chamber like a knife through silk. "Earth acknowledges the gravity of this crisis," he said simply. "We will provide appropriate military assistance to defend our fellow council members." Several alien delegates exchanged glances that clearly showed their skepticism. The Zephyrian admiral tried to hide his disappointment, while General Vextar's compound eyes seemed to dim with resignation. They had hoped for more substantial support from every member world, no matter how small. "What forces can your world contribute?" asked the council secretary. More out of protocol than genuine interest, Kim Daeho consulted a small datapad before responding. "Earth will dispatch our military specialists immediately. They should arrive at the staging area within 3 standard galactic days. The vague nature of his response drew some curious looks, but most delegates had already moved on to more pressing matters. The Cathari were arguing about fleet positions, while the Axiom Federation was calculating supply line logistics. Few paid attention as the human ambassador quietly returned to his seat, if they had been paying closer attention. They might have noticed the small smile that crossed Kim Dae-ho's face as he sent a coded message back to Earth. The message was brief and would have seemed unremarkable to any alien who intercepted it, but it would soon change the course of the entire war. The message simply read, "Council requests backup. Send the hunters." The staging area near the Kepler system buzzed with activity as ships from dozens of different worlds gathered for the largest military operation in galactic history. Massive Cathari swarm carriers floated alongside sleek Axiom Federation battleships, while the rocky fortress vessels of the Golem Confederacy moved slowly into formation. Combined fleet stretched across several million kilometers of space. An impressive display of galactic unity against the Vorthach threat. Admiral Thylex stood in his command center aboard the flagship Crystal Dawn, watching the fleet assembly through the transparent walls of his bridge. His crystalline body flickered with nervous energy as he coordinated the arrival of reinforcements from across the galaxy. Every few hours, new ships emerged from hyperspace, adding their strength to the growing armada. When the hyperspace sensors detected another incoming vessel, Thylex barely looked up from his tactical displays. The fleet had grown so large that individual arrivals had become routine. His aide, a younger Zephyrian named Kylrax, monitored the new ship's approach. "We have a single transport vessel emerging from hyperspace," Kylrax reported. "It appears to be the human contribution we were expecting." Thylex finally turned his attention to the newcomer, his hopes rising slightly. Perhaps the humans had sent a larger force than their ambassador had indicated. Maybe their modest, diplomatic presence had hidden significant military capabilities. Those hopes quickly faded as the sensor data appeared on his display screens. The human ship was small, barely larger than a standard courier vessel. Its hull showed no signs of heavy armor or weapon systems. Compared to the massive warships surrounding it, the human transport looked like a tiny insect among giants. Its sensor analysis, Kylrax Thylex ordered, his voice carrying disappointment. 200 life signs aboard, sir. Standard transport configuration with basic life support and minimal defensive systems. No detectable heavy weapons, no fighter craft. No apparent military technology beyond basic shields. Thylex felt his crystalline form dim with frustration. He had hoped that humanity might surprise them with hidden capabilities. But this looked like exactly what it appeared to be. A token gesture from a junior member of the galactic community. General Vexstar arrived on the bridge just as the human transport was requesting docking permission. The Cathari commander's compound eyes focused on the small ship displayed on the tactical screens, and his mandibles clicked together in what his species considered polite skepticism. "This is Earth's military contribution?" Vexstar asked, his translated voice carrying subtle undertones of disappointment. "I was hoping their modest diplomatic presence meant they were saving their strength for this moment." "It appears not," Thylex replied, authorizing the docking request. "But we must welcome whatever support our allies can provide, no matter how small." 20 minutes later, the human transport had docked with one of the smaller airlocks on the Crystal Dawn. Thylex and Vexstar made their way to the docking bay to officially greet the human forces. Though neither expected much from the encounter, when the airlock cycled open with a soft hiss, Thylex prepared to meet more humans like Ambassador Kim Dae-ho, polite, diplomatic, and clearly out of their depth in military matters. What emerged from the transport made him reconsider every assumption he had made about humanity. The first figure through the airlock was clearly the group's leader, though he wore no fancy uniform or ceremonial decorations. Instead, his clothing was dark and practical, covered with equipment that seemed designed for function rather than appearance. He moved with a fluid grace that reminded Thylex uncomfortably of the predators from his homeworld's ancient past. Behind him came others, each moving with the same unsettling combination of alertness and controlled stillness. Their eyes constantly scanned the docking bay, taking in every detail, every possible threat or advantage. These were not the soft diplomats that had represented humanity in the Galactic Council. Colonel Park Minho, Earth Special Operations Command. The leader introduced himself with a slight bow that somehow managed to be both respectful and intimidating. Reporting for duty, Admiral Thylex. Welcome aboard, Colonel Thylex replied, his translator working to convey appropriate military courtesy. I must ask, where are the rest of your forces? Our sensors indicated only 200 personnel aboard your transport. Park's expression remained neutral as he gestured to the soldiers. Still emerging from the airlock, this is our full deployment, Admiral. Lieutenant Lee So-young, our reconnaissance specialist. Sergeant Kim Tae-jin, demolitions expert. Corporal Choi Ju-woo, communications warfare. Each member of our team has been selected for specific capabilities. General. Vexstar stepped forward, his mandibles clicking with barely concealed anxiety. Something about these humans was making his combat instincts trigger warning signals. Colonel Park, we appreciate your world's contribution, but surely you understand the scale of this conflict. The Vorthach Empire fields millions of biomechanical soldiers. We face fleet engagements involving thousands of ships. Park nodded and produced a small tactical display from his equipment. The holographic projections that appeared showed battle plans unlike anything the alien commanders had ever seen. Instead of fleet formations and defensive positions, the human plans showed infiltration routes, sabotage targets, and what appeared to be assassination missions.
Oh, yeah.
Where are your defensive positions? Thylex asked, studying the strange tactical displays, your supply line protections, your fleet support requirements. We don't use those tactics, Admiral, Park replied simply. Human military doctrine focuses on mobility, stealth, and precision strikes against critical targets. Vexstar's compound eyes widened as he examined the human battle plans more closely. But where are your heavy weapons? Your armored vehicles? Your support craft? How do you expect to engage Vorthach war machines with such limited equipment? Park's smile was cold and predatory, sending an involuntary shiver through both alien commanders. When he spoke, his voice carried absolute confidence that somehow made his words more terrifying than reassuring. General, we don't need heavy weapons or armored vehicles, he said quietly. We are the weapons. Within hours of arriving at the staging area, the human forces had simply disappeared. Admiral Thylex stood in his command center, staring at the tactical displays that showed absolutely no trace of the 200 Earth soldiers who had been aboard his flagship. Just that morning, his crystalline form flickered with confusion as he tried to understand what had happened. Kilrox run another sensor sweep, he ordered his aide. The humans must be somewhere in the fleet formation. The young Zephyrian worked frantically at his console, his transparent fingers dancing across the holographic controls. Sir, I've scanned every ship in our fleet twice. There's no sign of Colonel Park or any of his people. It's as if they simply vanished into space. General Vexstar arrived on the bridge, his 6 arms gesturing wildly in the Cathari expression of extreme agitation. Admiral, my swarm commanders report the same thing. The humans are gone, but no ships left the fleet. How is this possible? Before Thylex could respond, his communications officer intercepted an emergency transmission from the Vorthach-controlled territories. The message was brief and disturbing. A major command facility on the outer rim of Kepler 44 to be had gone completely silent. All attempts to contact the base had failed. That's impossible, Vexstar declared, his compound eyes studying the transmission data. Kepler 44 to be is deep inside Vorthach territory. Our scouts haven't even been able to get close to that system. Lex felt a strange chill run through his crystalline structure. Send a probe to investigate. Use maximum stealth protocols. The probe's journey took several hours, but when it finally reached Kepler 44 to b, the images it transmitted back left the alien commander speechless. The Vorthach command post, which had housed over 3,000 biomechanical soldiers and their support staff, was completely destroyed. Facility's massive defensive guns had been turned into twisted metal, and the communication towers lay in smoking ruins. What could do this? Whispered Calrex, his voice barely audible over the bridge's ambient hum. Before anyone could answer, more reports began flooding in from across the contested zone. A weapons factory on Proxima 7 had exploded, taking out months of Vorthach military production. A supply convoy carrying replacement parts for their war machines had vanished without a trace between two star systems. A regional command center on Titan Delta lost all communication with the rest of the Vorthach fleet. Admiral Thylex watched the reports accumulate on his tactical display. Each incident marked with a red warning symbol within just 12 hours. The Vorthach Empire had lost more strategic assets than they had in the previous 3 months of conventional warfare. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we're intercepting Vorthach military transmissions. They're requesting immediate reinforcements across 17 different sectors. Their commanders sound ... frightened." General Vexstar studied the pattern of attacks on the holographic star map. "This is impossible. How are they striking so many targets simultaneously?" "We counted only 200 human soldiers." Thylex had been wondering the same thing. According to the intelligence reports, the humans had somehow divided into smaller groups. But the coordination required for such widespread operations seemed beyond the capabilities of such a small force. On the bridge's main display, "Intercepted." Vorthach communications continued to stream in. The alien commanders could hear the growing panic in the enemy transmissions, though they couldn't understand how such chaos had erupted so quickly. "Command Base That-9 to Fleet Control," came one transmission. "We are under attack by unknown forces. Enemy appeared from nowhere," and the transmission cut to static. Another message followed immediately. "Supply Convoy 77 Alpha has failed to report. Last known position was interference, made the rest inaudible." Thylex turned to his sensor operator, a quiet Zephyrian named Melthara, who had been tracking the various incidents. "Do you see any pattern in these attacks?" Crystalline features brightened as she processed the data. "Sir, every target has been a critical infrastructure point. Power generation facilities, communication hubs, supply depots, command centers. Someone is systematically destroying the Vorthach Empire's ability to coordinate their forces." "But how are they moving undetected?" Vexstar demanded. "Our own stealth technology couldn't penetrate that deeply into enemy territory." Melthara hesitated before responding. "Sir, according to our sensors, they're not using stealth technology. They seem to be ... hiding in plain sight. Our instruments detect no energy signatures, no movement patterns, no heat traces. It's as if they become part of the environment itself." Thylex felt a disturbing realization growing in his mind. He had studied the military histories of various galactic species, and something about the human tactics reminded him of ancient hunting patterns from his own world's prehistoric past. "Calrox, access the cultural database on human evolution," he ordered. "I want to know how their species developed before they achieved spaceflight." The information that appeared on his display sent chills through his crystalline structure. Humans had evolved as persistence hunters, predators who tracked prey across vast distances using patience, endurance, and an almost supernatural ability to read their environment. For millions of years, they had perfected the art of stalking and killing prey that was larger, stronger, and better armored than themselves. Admiral Melthara reported, her voice filled with awe, "I'm detecting massive power failures across the Vorthach front lines. Entire battle groups are going dark. It's as if their whole military infrastructure is collapsing." Thylex stared at the tactical display, watching red markers disappear one by one as Vorthach positions fell silent. The humans hadn't brought massive fleets or powerful weapons to this war. Instead, they had brought something far more dangerous. The refined hunting instincts of apex predators who had spent millions of years learning to kill efficiently and disappear without a trace. The hunt had begun, and the Vorthach Empire was learning what it meant to be prey. The massive command ship Devastator hung in the void above the conquered world of Proxima Station, its biomechanical hull pulsing with the organic components that made Vorthach technology so terrifying. Inside the ship's primary command center, Warlord Grextel studied the tactical displays that showed his empire's recent losses. The cybernetic implants covering half his face clicked and whirred as he processed the disturbing information. For 300 years, the Vorthach Empire had expanded across the galaxy using the same proven strategy: overwhelming force applied, without mercy. Their biomechanical soldiers were stronger than any organic troops, their war machines were more powerful than any enemy fleet, and their command structure was more efficient than any rival civilization. They had conquered 47 star systems using these advantages, and never once had they faced serious resistance. Until now. "Report," Grexel commanded. His voice a mixture of organic vocal cords and mechanical enhancement that created an unsettling harmonic effect. His intelligence officer, Subcommander Vexkol, approached with obvious reluctance. His left side of his body had been replaced with mechanical components after a battle injury, and those parts were currently emitting stress indicators that showed his growing fear. "Warlord, we have lost contact with 17 more command positions in the past 6 hours," Vexkol reported. "The pattern continues across all sectors. Our commanders are being eliminated faster than we can replace them." Sorganic eye narrowed while his cybernetic implant zoomed in on the tactical display. Red markers indicated positions that had gone silent, and they formed a pattern that suggested coordinated attacks across impossible distances. "How many enemy forces are we facing?" he demanded. "That's the problem, Warlord. Our intelligence suggests no more than 200 individuals, but they appear to be operating in multiple locations simultaneously." The impossibility of the situation made Grexthal's mechanical components emit an angry whining sound. 200 soldiers, no matter how skilled, could not possibly cause the level of destruction his empire was experiencing, deep in the lower levels of Proxima Station. Captain Li Minyoon moved through the shadows like a ghost. Her team of 20 specialists had infiltrated the heavily defended facility through maintenance tunnels that the Vorthach had never bothered to properly secure. Their biomechanical soldiers were designed for direct combat, not for detecting enemies who refused to fight conventionally. Li Minyoon communicated with her team using hand signals that made no sound and produced no electronic emissions. Behind her, Sergeant Kong Du-woo carried the specialized equipment they would need to eliminate Warlord Grextal, while Corporal Yoon Jae-sung monitored the facility's security systems through a hijacked maintenance terminal. The Vorthach had made a critical error in their fortress design. They had built their defenses to stop massive armies and powerful weapons, but they had never considered enemies who could slip through gaps, barely large enough for a single person. Meanwhile, on the industrial world of Titan 7, Lieutenant Seo Donghan was putting the finishing touches on a different kind of operation. His team had spent 3 days mapping the primary weapons factory that supplied the Vorthach war machine with its most advanced equipment. They had identified the exact points where small explosive charges could create a chain reaction that would destroy the entire facility. The beauty of their plan was its simplicity. Rather than trying to fight thousands of biomechanical guards, they had simply avoided them entirely. The Vorthach soldiers marched in predictable patterns, following routes programmed into their cybernetic components. Human eyes, trained by millions of years of hunting evolution, could see the gaps in those patterns that no mechanical sensor could detect. Back aboard the Devastator, Warlord Grexthal was receiving reports that made his mechanical implants spark with fury. His biomechanical soldiers were reporting impossible things, equipment that failed for no apparent reason, sounds in empty corridors, and the constant feeling that they were being watched by invisible enemies. "The troops are becoming unstable," Subcommander Vexkol reported reluctantly. "They speak of whispers in the darkness, of shadows that move when no one is there." Some refused to patrol alone. For the first time in his centuries of conquest, Grexal felt something his species had engineered out of themselves long ago: fear. The biomechanical modifications that made his people so effective in battle had removed their ability to feel most emotions, but fear was too fundamental to eliminate completely. On Proxima Station, Li Minyoung's team struck with the precision that had made humanity the apex predators of Earth. One moment, Warlord Grexthal was studying his tactical displays. In the next moment, his command center was filled with smoke and chaos. By the time his guards responded to the emergency alarms, the humans had already vanished back into the shadows they had emerged from. The explosion on Titan 7 occurred exactly 17 minutes later, destroying 3 months of weapons production in a chain reaction that could be seen from orbit. Lieutenant Seo Donghyun's team was already moving to their extraction point. When the shockwaves reached the planet's surface, Supreme Commander Thresmach received the news of both disasters while aboard his flagship deep in Vorthach territory. The mechanical components that made up 60% of his body were running diagnostic cycles constantly, trying to process the impossibility of what was happening to his empire. What manner of species are these humans? He demanded, his voice carrying harmonics of confusion and growing panic. His chief intelligence officer, a being more machine than organic, accessed the cultural databases that Vorthach spies had compiled on various galactic species. What he found there sent error messages cascading through his cybernetic systems. Commander, according to our analysis, humans evolved as persistence hunters, the officer reported. They are predators who've spent millions of years learning to track and eliminate prey across any terrain in any condition. The implications hit Thresmach like a physical blow. His empire had not encountered an army or even a traditional military force. They had stumbled into the territory of apex predators who had turned hunting into an art form refined over millions of years of evolution. And we have become their prey, he whispered, the first words of defeat ever spoken by a Vorthach. Commander, the great crystal halls of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in their assigned seats, staring at the holographic displays that showed something impossible. The red markers that had represented Vorthach-controlled territory were disappearing one by one, replaced by the blue symbols of liberated worlds. Admiral Thylex stood at his command station, watching the tactical updates stream in from across 3 star systems. His crystalline form flickered with disbelief as each report confirmed what his sensors were telling him. The Vorthach Empire, which had seemed unstoppable just 3 weeks ago, was in complete retreat. Confirmed withdrawal from Sector 7, reported his communications officer. Vorthach forces are abandoning their positions on Kepler 44 to B. Sector 12 reports the same, added another officer. Enemy forces retreating beyond the galactic rim. General Vextar's compound eyes reflected the blue lights of the tactical display as he processed the impossible information. His mandibles clicked together in the Cathari expression of complete confusion. In 300 years of galactic history, no force has ever made the Vorthach Empire retreat from conquered territory. The main chamber doors opened with a soft hiss, and Colonel Park Min-ho entered with the same quiet confidence he had displayed when he first arrived. Behind him walked the members of his team, their faces showing no emotion despite having just accomplished the impossible. Lieutenant Bae Soo-jin carried a datapad with their mission reports, while Sergeant Kong Do-young and Corporal Lim Jaho maintained the alert posture that had become their trademark. Ambassador Kim Dae-ho rose from his seat in the back of the chamber, his expression showing the same diplomatic calm he had maintained throughout the crisis. The other alien representatives turned to stare at the small group of humans who had somehow changed the course of galactic history. Colonel Park approached the center of the chamber and activated his communicator. His voice carried clearly through the translation systems to every delegate present. Galactic Council, this is Colonel Park Min-ho of Earth Special Operations Command, reporting mission completion. The chamber remained silent, except for the soft humming of the environmental systems. Admiral Thylex found himself unable to speak, his crystalline form dim with shock. Park continued his report with the same matter-of-fact tone he might use to describe a routine training exercise. All Vorthach military positions have been neutralized. Enemy command structure has been completely dismantled. Occupied territories are secure and ready for civilian administration. Impossible, whispered General Vextar, his voice barely audible. Through the translation system? The Vorthach Empire controlled 47 star systems. They had millions of biomechanical soldiers, had Park corrected gently. Their command hierarchy was their weakness. Remove the commanders, and the soldiers become just machines following old programming. Admiral Thylex finally found his voice, though it came out as a whisper that the translation system had to amplify. How did you do this? 200 soldiers against an entire empire? Park exchanged glances with his team members, and for the first time since arriving, he smiled. It was not a friendly expression. Admiral, we are the product of 4 billion years of evolution on a world where survival meant being the most efficient. Predator, we are what happens when hunting becomes an art form. Lieutenant Bei Su-jin stepped forward and activated her own datapad. Our species spent millions of years learning to track prey across any terrain, in any weather, for any distance. Required, we developed the ability to work together in small groups, to strike precisely at critical points, and to disappear before our prey could react. Sergeant Kang Du-yang added, the Vorthach were designed for overwhelming force against direct resistance. They never learned to fight enemies who refused to be overwhelmed. The alien delegates sat in stunned silence as the implications sank in. They had invited what they thought were primitive newcomers to join their civilization, only to discover they had allied themselves with the most refined predators in known space. Park consulted his communicator, nodded to his team. Our transport is ready for departure. The galaxy is secure, and we have other duties to attend to. As the human soldiers filed out of the chamber with the same quiet efficiency they had shown throughout the crisis, the alien representatives remained frozen in their seats. They watched through the viewing ports as the modest human transport ship undocked from the station and disappeared into hyperspace. Carrying its cargo of deadly specialists back to their home world, Ambassador Kim Dae-ho remained behind, returning to his seat with the same calm demeanor he had maintained throughout the crisis. But something had changed in the way the other delegates looked at him. Where once they had seen a representative of a junior member species, they now saw the diplomatic face of apex predators. Over the following weeks, as the news of the Vorthach defeat spread throughout the galaxy, several aggressive species quietly abandoned their expansion plans. The hegemony of Kralthex, which had been preparing to invade the Outer Rim territories, suddenly announced they were focusing on internal development. The war clans of Morden, known for their raids on peaceful worlds, declared a period of meditation. In spiritual growth, the message was clear to every species in the galaxy. Humanity preferred diplomacy, trade, and peaceful cooperation. They were excellent neighbors, reliable allies, and valuable trading partners. But hidden behind their diplomatic smiles and polite manners was something that made even the most warlike species reconsider their aggressive tendencies. The galaxy had learned that Earth's apex predators were called that for a very good reason. And that reason was now watching from the shadows, ready to hunt again if necessary.